What is up, all you real estate loving individuals? This is episode number 17 of the Real Estate Take podcast, and I'm your host, Wendell Butler. This is your go-to podcast with tons of information regarding the current real estate market, where we get various real estate professionals' current take on different areas of real estate. For today's guest, we have Jeremy Beland. Jeremy Beland is a real estate investor and coach, renowned for his expertise in wholesaling, flipping, and other real estate investment strategies. He founded REI Freedom to help aspiring investors transition into full-time roles by offering hands-on training and guidance. Jeremy's students benefit from his actionable advice, with many closing their first deals quickly under his mentorship. Beyond his professional accomplishments, Jeremy is a dedicated husband and father of 5. Wow. Passionate about fitness and living an active lifestyle. And I gotta love that. His mission is to empower others to achieve financial freedom through real estate. So let's invite Jeremy in here. Jeremy, how are you doing today?
Doing well, man. Thank you so much, Wendell, for having me on your podcast today. Real Estate Take podcast. I'm excited to be here, bro. Let's talk real estate.
Let's get into it. Real estate's awesome. There's so many ways, so many things you can do with it. And it's a freaking exciting way to really grow and become just a better person and become financially free. So why not talk about it?
Exactly.
So before we dive into anything, I just want to get to know more about you. I want the audience to know more about you as well. So just dive into a little bit like who you are and what got you into real estate and what's your backstory leading into that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll try to get through it pretty quickly. As I stand here today, I'm 48 years old. My name is Jeremy Beland. I officially started my real estate journey back 2016 going into 2017 as I turned 40. So all of my success in my real estate has come in my 40s. Talk about better late than never. Listen, my background isn't anything great. I was born into this world with a single mom. We were homeless. We struggled for the first many years of my life until she got married. Then we found life as an adolescent into my teenage years of lower middle class America, which was great. And then my stepfather, when I was about 13, 14 years old, going into high school, decided he wanted to leave a really good W-2 job and he wanted to build his own business. There's nothing wrong with that, but he failed epically and in the process lost everything. So going into high school, found myself homeless again, more or less. We went through bankruptcy, foreclosure, lost everything, had our cars all repossessed. And that kind of set me in a trajectory of like just being a lost kid because they were struggling to kind of figure their own shit out. And my teenage years were just me bouncing around from high school to high school, eventually dropped out before I was 16 and just found myself in my early 20s, basically just like a high-rise window cleaner in Boston, Massachusetts, because that's all I knew. I didn't have any money, didn't have any credit. It was basically for $20,000 a year hanging off skyscrapers to make ends meet. But, I started getting into fitness at that time in my life. I played sports as a youth, but because of everything that happened in my life, sports was just taken away from me. And went into doing stupid stuff like drinking and smoking pot and all that other stuff that young kids do without a mission. But started getting into the gym, led me to start playing semi-pro football in my early 20s when I was a high-rise window cleaner. And a friend of mine came over to me and said, dude, I think you should come work for me in my company. We sell copiers, printers, fax machines. I'm like, all right, sounds better than hanging off a skyscraper in the cold, being covered in pigeon poop every day. So he got me a job. I never even owned a tie. I had to buy my first ever tie and put it on and got the job interview just to get it. And that was my first taste. And I found myself in my mid-20s with a sales job. And I was learning business to business, cold calling, door knocking. Every no leads you closer to a yes. And it was all brand new to me. It was foreign, but it was so much better than the hard work that I was doing, the hard labor work. Many people slammed the doors on my face. It didn't matter. I was just happy to be in an office every day. And I was making the same amount of money with an upside. I had some great success, left that job to another job. And then all of a sudden I found myself like 30 years old, your age, Wendell, and I was making 6 figures, and I had a house. I was married, had 2 small kids, had the white picket fence. I was like living what I thought was a dream. I couldn't believe it. I literally had a pool in my backyard, had new cars. Like I came from nothing. So I had it all and everything was great until 2009. And it wasn't so great. And for those who here listening, remember about 2009, that's the year the Great Recession really started to happen. And that was not only a housing crisis, but it was an employment crisis and it rushed me. So I found myself having positive equity about $80,000 prior to the recession to being upside down about a year and a half later, about $150,000 in my house. I was out of work. And because I didn't have a college degree, a high school degree, I couldn't find work anywhere because everybody else was out of work too. So all the people that were more educated or had better jobs than me were all suffering the same outcomes. So everybody was taking like lower paying jobs just to make ends meet, which just kind of pushed me down that totem pole of employment even further. And there was no help then. I mean, your house was upside down. down, there was no help. You couldn't get loan modifications. There was no refinance options. It was like you lose it. And I couldn't find a job. And I had 2 small kids. So spiraled into depression, didn't know what to do. I felt like a complete failure. And I had this opportunity to go into the Air Force. And I thought, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go into the Air Force. I'm going to learn how to sell network security because I can't afford to go back to college. I can't get a job anywhere. At least the Air Force will pay me $30,000 a year to learn something. So that's what I'm going to do. But I can't get into the Air Force because I need a top secret clearance unless I don't go through bankruptcy and don't go through a foreclosure, which I'm on the brink of doing. I was starting to learn about real estate investing at that time. I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Cash Flow Quadrant. I was learning from Peter Conti, even took a Donald Trump University weekend seminar. So I was starting to just dip my toes into real estate investing at that time, more or less wholesaling. And then my whole world collapsed underneath me. So what I decided to do is I reached out to a real estate investor and said, hey man, can you help me? And he did. So my first off-market deal ever was me being the motivated seller per se to a real estate investor. And that real estate investor came in and said, hey, listen, we can short sale your house. I've worked with this mortgage company before. They're a pain in the ass, but I have success to do it. Let me get it done for you. And that's exactly what he did. He prevented me from foreclosure. I didn't have to go to bankruptcy. I just got a short sale. I left my family. I went into the military at 33 years old, just before 34. I was even older than you, Wendell. I was at basic training with a bunch of 17-year-old kids, but that gave me a reset button in life to learn how to build from that rock bottom place. And if it wasn't for that real estate investor, I wouldn't be here talking to you today. So that gave me the reset button in life. And that was critical for what happened after that. So I go into the military, I come back, I get divorced, find myself struggling, eventually get myself back into 6-figure sales job again. Life is good. I'm a divorced dad of 2 kids. And then I find myself approaching 40 and I'm starting to feel my age. And I'm like, what am I going to do? What if something happens again and I'm out of work? I don't want to be bouncing around from rock bottom to building myself up, rock bottom to building myself up. It was too much. So I said, I'm going to go into real estate investing. I started listening to podcasts, came across Wholesaling Inc., Tom Kroll, and said, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to learn how to wholesale because I don't know how to use other people's money. I don't have any money. So I sold my townhouse at 40 years old. It was the only thing that I had. I made $17,000 in equity off of that house. I took $11,000 to start my real estate journey. $6,000 went into marketing plan. $5,000 went into the coaching plan. Moved my kids into a crappy little 2-bedroom apartment, and we're off and running. Within 90 days, I got my first check. It's $5,000, March 2017.
Bam.
10 deals that year. Built the foundation of something great. And as I stand here today, as we're ending our 8th year, we've done over 450 off-market deals. We've done over $10 million in gross profits. I've built 3 different markets to 7-figure earners. It's been a hell of a freaking ride. It's amazing. I'm still making mistakes. I'm still learning, but man, do I love what we do.
That's awesome. That's like one of those stories that like you really started from the bottom and then you really just worked yourself all the way through. And now you're kind of living the dream that initially you didn't even know was the dream. Like, didn't even know that you wanted to do that. And now you're doing it. And you're just like a really good example. It's just a story that's a really good example that like anybody can invest in real estate or find ways to make money in it too, no matter what your kind of barriers are or background is or where you're coming from. So I love that.
I mean, I have no high school education. I was poor and broke many times in my life. A lot of that is not easy. So I can relate to that. But you got to have perseverance. This business isn't easy. Like anything else, it takes a lot of hard work and you're going to get kicked in the teeth. You have to just keep moving forward. So I look back at 2009, which was like the worst time of my life, but it actually turned out to be a very good blessing. And I'm very thankful for all the shit that I went through during that time because it led me to here and now. And listen, I still have my ups and downs today in real estate, right? It's not all just rainbows and sunshines and unicorns. I wish it was, but that's not reality. But I am living the dream that I've always wanted to do. So I'm very thankful for everything.
Yeah. And real estate is not, I mean, everybody nowadays look at like gurus online and they think it's like a get rich quick thing and it's going to be easy and it's going to be simple. No, it's actually really, really hard. And I would even say like right now, like the past 3 years, it's been just getting harder and harder and more complicated with the economy and the rates and just a lot of people just having a lot of issues. Banks are getting more like a conservative for lending. So like people are having problems buying homes. Yeah. It's just a combination of just a ton of things. But if you can get through, just like you did, if you got through 2009 and then you get through like, when you get through the hard parts and you just stick to it, that's just going to put you light years ahead of other people when you get out of that. Because one, you're going to learn so much. You're going to build thick skin. You're going to learn about the cyclical, I can't even say the word, nature of real estate, that there's ups and downs, right? Yeah. And like on the down, if you're still doing good, that up is going to be amazing. And it takes a while and you just got to keep on working at it, work hard every single day, just like you said. I mean, you're just living proof of that happening. And
I appreciate that. A lot of people in 2010, 2011 were like telling other people, are you freaking crazy? Why would you get into real estate now, right? All those people who got in 2010, 2011 rode all the way up until 2021, 22 and rode a 10-year stretch where everything was up and to the right. It's probably one of the greatest economies in real estate ever in this country, right? So if you time that well, you're sitting pretty, but it is cyclical, and you're going to learn more about yourself in times of adversity and struggle when things aren't easy, right? It's easy to say, hey, I'm a rock star when the market's super forgiving and letting you out. Try being a rock star when the interest rates are real high, sellers aren't really selling, your properties aren't really moving if you're a flipper, right? Those changes in the market you have to learn to overcome because they are going to happen. They are inevitable. You're not going to be able to like, oh, the economy and market sucks, I'm pausing everything, I'm going to wait 3 years, and then when it's back up and to the right, I'm going to ride it. It doesn't work that way. You have to be able to be great on the ups, and you have to learn to survive the downs. And if you can do both, you'll be around a long time, because it is not a get rich quick, which you mentioned. People have to think of this more as a marathon and not even something that has an end destination, right? So I came in originally and I used to think, oh man, 5 years, I'll be blah, blah, blah. That's not reality. Honestly, I'll probably be doing real estate for the next 20, 30 years of my life. Even if I don't financially need to, I'll probably still want to. But I think it takes a good 10 years to build enough financial income in this where you could possibly start to look at not having to work. But even still, I don't know too many people who have retired off of real estate in less than 20 years.
Yeah, there's anomalies out there. There always are. Like someone that maybe got really lucky. Well, it's skill plus luck. I never just say luck. Like if you put yourself in the right place at the right time, that's partially skill. Like you did it. But yes, luck does come into play. And yeah, there are people that can just make a ton out of nowhere and they're like, okay, I'm set for a while. But that's not for like 99.9% of other real estate investors and people that get into it. That's not going to happen, to be honest.
I can go play Powerball and I might be one of the guys that wins and never has to work a day in my life, right? So there is obviously, like you said, there's a small percentage that yield great results. And we look at people like Grant Cardone and stuff like that and being like, oh, hey, he could do it. Why can't I? And you probably could if you did what he did. But a majority of us, this is just, we live a lifestyle that we love. We can build real estate to build the lifestyle we want. But it's not going to be one of these things where you don't just ever work again. It's just, it doesn't bring in that kind of money, at least not in a short amount of time. If you do things right, I think you could achieve that 10, 15, 20 years. But it's a lot of hard work to get there.
Yeah, absolutely. So speaking of like the future and working hard to continue reaching like a certain goal, just to dive in a little bit, like what you're looking to obtain and kind of your drive and your vision, like what are you looking to do on the long term on your real estate journey, and what is kind of your current goal, or not a quote unquote end goal, but like what are you heading towards currently?
That's a great question. And it's funny because yesterday I was on another podcast and the guy asked me, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And I answered him on the spur of the moment. But as I was reflecting on that, I thought, man, I want a retake of that question because I don't really like the answer that I gave. Because 5 years ago, Wendell, I was still working a W-2. I was still working my business full time. So I was working a full-time job, working my business full time, just hired my first acquisition guy. You know, we're still struggling deal to deal. So much has changed in 5 years. I've changed so much in 5 years. The amount of money that you can generate, the amount of success that you can achieve in just a short 5 years in real estate is literally mind blowing. And that was for me starting from basically nothing, right? I only had 2 years worth of work of really momentum. Now I have 8 years of momentum and knowledge and experience and coaching from the coaches that I've paid all these years, building the next 5 years. So like, it's hard for me to even predict what the next 5 years are going to be because I'm going to probably do way more than I ever thought because I'm naturally modest. I have high expectations, but I tend to be modest. So I'm really excited about the next 5 years. And I think it's going to be more amazing than I can really even wrap my head around. But with that being said, I still want to get better. I want to be a better CEO, a business owner. I want to be a better investor. We're still looking to buy and hold as many properties as we can, sell the ones that we don't like, keep the ones that we do. We're going to continue to get better at off-market acquisitions. I'd still like to get my businesses, my 2 locations bigger and stronger. I found over the last 5 years that scaling isn't always better. So we've actually scaled back and run kind of a smaller operation, which allows me to have a much better lifestyle. And my net profit isn't much different actually. So I don't see myself scaling to a big operation ever again. I may have been a couple different markets, small operations that are very manageable for me. And then I really want to make a difference with my coaching business. I talked earlier in this podcast about that real estate investor that came into my life in 2009, giving me a reset button. With the companies that I've built, being able to acquire over 450 off-market properties, right? We've been able to do that many times, pay that forward many times over and over and over, which is great, right? Because good people fall in hard times, right? We're all 1 or 2 life decisions away from just being at rock bottom, or life events outside of our control of being on rock bottom, right? Things happen in life and it happens to good people. And real estate investors can help people out of those situations. Now I'm in a position where I can teach people to build a life of freedom. And I don't want to say like financial freedom. It is kind of financial freedom, but they can work from the kitchen table like I do. They don't have to work 40 hours. They can go on vacation whenever they want. They don't have to ask anybody for anything. They just live on life on their own terms, making really good money, providing providing a good future for themselves and their family, I could teach them how to do that, but also continue to help people in their community. So I'm really excited about the coaching and what that's going to bring in the next 5 years as well.
Love that. I love that. And to go back on what you said, like you mentioned it twice, so I want to bring it up again, is the fact that someone came and helped you in 2009. What a lot of people don't realize is that real estate it's an industry and it's a career path of just solving problems. It's not all about just making money. Yes, the money comes along with it, but if you're in the game to just make money and that's all you care about, I don't think that you're really going to get to the point that you want to get to. If you're all about solving problems, I think you're going to have a lot more opportunity to, one, build rapport with sellers and be able to actually buy the properties better because you're truthfully trying to solve their problem. And two, you're just going to feel better about it too and not get burnt out. Because if you're just chasing a number, it's infinite amount of numbers. Like you're never going to reach the number. It's just going to keep on running out ahead of you like the carrot on the string. Like you're never going to get it, right? Yeah. But if you just continue to like, I want to solve a problem today, and then you solve a problem, you feel much more fulfilled and you keep moving forward. And people don't think about it that way in real estate. I think it's great that you keep bringing that up because you can change people's lives. Like someone changed your life, like you were in a very financial situation that could have, if you got bankrupt, that would have been 7 years on your record, foreclosure, like you would have been stuck for a while. Like you had to put a pause, really reevaluate what you had to do. But these people that are going through foreclosure, especially like even like today, like if you go in and just get them a short sale, get them out of that situation, just get them to the next chapter of their life, they can start rebuilding without that burden of having the bankruptcy, foreclosure, and all that on their back end, which is, it's really fulfilling, I would just say. And I love that you bring that up. Now, I just want to dive like kind of into that a little bit more because I know you said 5 years. I'm going to ask you a more kind of broad question, but I want to try to give it in like 2 sentences or 1 sentence. When people are at your funeral, it's kind of a little morbid, but after all your years in real estate and helping people, like what do you want your legacy to be? What do you want people to remember you for based on what you're doing in real estate or or life as a whole?
Yeah, it's a great question because we all, I mean, if you don't want to have any meaning left behind, I mean, what's the point of living, right? Obviously, I want to live the best life for me ever, right? I want to enjoy myself because life is so short and I just want to live the best life. So I'm going to do whatever I can to achieve that. But as far as my legacy, I want family and people to realize that I was a good source of positivity, love, light, hope in their life. If it's a student that says, I'm so thankful for Jeremy teaching me how to become a better wholesaler that changed the trajectory of my life, or Jeremy was a good person that I talked to on a regular basis and he just was a good listener, whatever it is, I want people to feel like, wow, I'm thankful for Jeremy being in my life because it made a positive impact. And however that positive impact is, it's going to be very unique and individualized, but I can do that, man. I mean, what more can you ask for?
Yeah, I love that. Just changing people's lives, leaving an imprint on them. So like when they look back, they're like, that's when my life changed. And I'm thankful that Jeremy came along and helped me do that. I love that. Yeah, that's awesome. That is awesome. All right, so let's dive a little bit deeper into some more specifics here. All right, so let's go. I'm not going to go all the way back to your first deal unless you do want to talk about that one if you remember it. But let's just tell a little story, like an approach that you've had recently with building or an acquisition that you're doing and like lessons that you learned from it even today, or just one that was a really big lesson that you're like, wow, that really changed the way that I looked at real estate and my approach in my business. But just some type of deal that really is a good teaching point for the listeners, and maybe even one that you just remember the best that really changed the way that you think about real estate.
Yeah, how about if I phrase it like this? So you mentioned about solving problems, right? And everything you were saying during the talk that you were giving, no true words have been spoken, right? It's all about solving problems, right? So when you're working with distressed properties, everybody has a unique situation and they're only thinking about this situation. You need to come in and customize a tailored solution to solve that person's problem in exchange for equity in their home. So it's not about the numbers, right? A lot of people come in and just say, I'm going to make offers based off numbers. It's not about that. It's about problem solving, right? So early on in my career, what I found out was, hey, I learned how to wholesale a deal, but where the money's really made is in the quote unquote sales skills, but let's call them communication skills of getting better at talking to distressed sellers, because distressed sellers tend to be habitual procrastinators, right? They're kicking the can down the road as far as they possibly can until they can't kick it anymore, right? They have avoidance issues. The world's collapsing around them. They're sticking their head in the sand like an ostrich. They're emotional. Denial, irrational, right? And these are all things you have to overcome. Sales is hard enough, but when you're dealing with people who are not at their best selves or don't make the best choices, there's a lot to navigate. So what I found early on in my career was I need to get better at the acquisition skills, talking to people, and I started to do coaching. And then we've kind of mastered that over the years, and then we brought in Dan Toback as a coach in my companies and built out our coaching program, but it's really based off of the sales skills. So what we teach in our coaching program is how to get better talking to people on the phone. How do you get better at talking to people in person, right? Coming from a place of empathy. So I'm going to share with you guys my 5 top sales techniques, all right? Perceived ownership. And perceived ownership ownership means you can't sell anybody on anything, because your first two objections in this business is, one, people hate salespeople, and two, nobody wants to be sold, right? So you need to have the seller understand that this is their decision to want to sell to you. So you're doing fact finding by asking questions and guiding them down this journey by asking all the right questions. And if you have a good script, you know which questions to ask and when. But in reality is, you're not selling them on, hey, this is why my house buying business is best. This is why I can do better than everybody else. No, they're going to come to that own conclusion themselves that you are the best fit for them or you're not. So it needs to be their perceived ownership, because what's going to happen is as soon as you leave with that contract, you're going to get a phone call on your voice on your cell phone. It's going to be like, hey, Jeremy, I thought about it and I don't want to move forward with the deal, because they're going to have seller remorse or seller regret. And that's what you don't want to have. All right. Yep. The other thing is, number two is status alignment. You need to make sure that you are feeling like you are on the same status level as this person. So realtors, we know they have their nice fancy cars and they have their vanity place when they show up to listings, right? Because they want to show success, because the people selling their listed homes want to get as much money as possible. But when you show up to a distressed house in a Beamer and a really fat gold watch or something, you're not approachable. You want to be the guy next door, the local home buyer, the person he would talk to at church, getting a cup of coffee at your son's ball game, right? You want to be somebody they feel like you're on the same social status level as them, and that will help you build more rapport, and it will let them not feel inferior or superior to you, which will level out the playing field for everybody to have open, honest communication to help identify a way to solve their problem. And I'll go through these all real quick. Overcoming higher authority and timeline objections. So listen, you're going to hear a lot of times, I need to talk to my wife. I need to talk to my business partner, right? This is an objection. You want to make sure that when you talk to anybody in person or on the phone, more or less when you go to do the meeting, acquire the property, make sure all decision makers are present. You want to make sure ahead of time that anybody who has to make a decision to be made is there so everybody can talk. And timeline objections. This is really an objection that's usually over just kind of masking as something else. But what is a timeline objection? For old people, they don't want to close in 30 days because if they feel like they don't have a place to go, they think they're going to be out on the streets as a senior citizen, right? Some people may need 2 months. You need to understand these timeline objections and make sure you're talking to all the right people. The fourth one is providing certainty. You want to make sure that this seller feels certain that you can solve their problems. We all have heard the stories of people being left basically at the closing table with a wholesaler that said, I'm going to get this deal done. And all of a sudden in the final hour, he's ghosting the seller. And the seller's like, what the hell happened? If that investor did that back to me in 2009, the outcome would have been devastating to me, right? And there's people doing that all the time, which give this industry a bad name. Don't be that person. Be the person that says, hey, I got testimonials. I have reviews. I have this experience where I can reassure you I am going to come through for you, because if you don't win, I don't win. Let's win together. And the last one is just handling pricing objections and negotiations. This is something you need to get better at. We don't make it all about the pricing, but there is a time that you need to discuss pricing, and getting everybody to agree on a price that works at both parties is no easy task. And this is where you need to just practice and learn. I recommend reading Never Split the Difference for this, learning a little bit about price objections and negotiations. Chris Voss's book is a good way to do mirroring, labeling, and even anchoring low to help pull pricing out of people. So these are just some techniques that I've learned along the way, Wendell, that have really helped us do many deals every single month rather than just one particular deal, right? These are the sales skills you need to learn, build a machine where you have houses closing every single month and build a 7-figure business.
Absolutely. And I think those 5 tips or 5 sales strategies that you just mentioned are perfect. And really what it comes down to, I think, and what all those combine to just basically say is that sales is all about building relationship and being like a person to person. People are gonna work with you, honestly, not because of the number. They're gonna work with you because they like you as a person and they feel trustworthy with you, and they really feel that you're the one that they want to work with just because of you as a person. So everything that you preach there and everything that you explain there just knocks it right down to a T. That's exactly how you should approach it, because that's really how you build relationships. And pricing, honestly, pricing should be the last thing that you talk about.
Correct. It should be.
You should not come in and be like, hey, I would pay this much for the house. No. Because the person would be like, oh, get the hell out of here.
Exactly.
You want to build that rapport. You want to build that trust. You want to figure out like the timeline. You want to really figure out their struggles, what their pain points are. Because sometimes the price isn't the biggest thing. Sometimes it's the timeline. Sometimes it's like they got their mother that they need to sell this house to give to her because she needs to find a place to live. Like there's tons of different things. You need to figure that out and then work with them to really build that relationship and solve that problem. And it's all about just opening up that problem more and more and more. And then once you do that, which all your things fall into this, is you basically open up the problem and keep prying at it until the seller basically sells themselves, because they're telling you all their issues and they're like, oh my God, this is like I need to get rid of this. And then you come in and you say, I can help you. And this is how we can do it. This is around where the pricing is. This is what I think. And then you can start talking about pricing when they're ready to really move forward. So I think that's awesome that you have that all in a 5 easy steps.
You're 100% accurate. So any of your listeners listening, I mean, it's very obvious you know this industry and you're doing all the right things because everything you said is exactly right. Well, I assume you've bought a few cars in your life, right? Have you ever gone to a car dealership?
Yeah, a few times.
Think about the time you go to a car dealership, right? And you're there on a Saturday morning looking at cars. You're out in the car lot, right? All of a sudden, the car salesman comes out of the car showroom and he starts coming towards you and he says, "Hey, Wendell, how can I help you?" And what do you always say?
Say, if I'm there to buy a car, I'm like, I want to buy a car. If I'm there to just browse, I'm like, I'm just looking around.
Yeah, a lot of people just say, "I'm looking," right? Yeah. And a lot of reason why is that because that's our natural defense, right? We don't want to be sold, right? And when you're making it all about the numbers and going into somebody's house like that, you're trying to sell them. And like everything you just said, right? We're not there to sell them. We're there to help them. And once we help them, they're going to want to do business with us because we could solve their problems. And this is why we buy deals for less money than a lot of our competition, is because they're offering more money, but they're not really offering the right solution. Money isn't the answer. Yes, they want more money. Yes, they need the money, but they're missing a key component, which is a lot of things that you said. So if you provide that data or that information and ways to provide that value, I mean, you get houses 40, 50, 60 cents on the dollar all day, every day, because you're really helping people out.
Absolutely. And another point that I'm sure you guys do for sure is when I'm negotiating with people, I obviously build relationships and stuff, but when it comes to like finally trying to close the deal, you don't want to present just like one option and be like, this is where we're at. This is it. You want to approach it with like 2 to 3 options and kind of put the ball in their court so they feel like they're the ones deciding which way they want to go, instead of you being like, this is it. This is what we're going to do. Yes or no. So that could be, especially in today's market, that's super hard. And it's very complicated to like really close some of these deals because cash offers have to be a lot less than normal, I would say. Yep. So a lot of people are like, oh my God, that's terrible. So you could do, here's a cash offer. Here's a novation agreement type situation that we can do. Yep. Here is
creative financing option.
Yeah, creative finance, seller finance. And these are your 3 options that I think we could do that we can all win from this and take some time and figure out which one you want to do that you think is best. And people, I think a lot of people don't do that. They just kind of do the quick cash offer. They don't want to deal with like going a little bit more tricky routes to solve a problem. But the second that you start trying to solve a problem, be creative and work with the seller, that's when it gets even better because the trust builds even more. And then they can even refer you like word of mouth, and they can leave you. That's when you get testimonials. And testimonials are huge in this business. When you present like multiple options, you're not just trying to just like lowball them. That's when you can ask them like, hey, can I get a testimonial? And they'll give it to you. And that's when you can start building your business back.
I would just say though, Wendell, when you're brand new, it's hard to know like all the tools in the tool belt, right? So when you're brand new, you really just want to kind of focus on one niche, get really good at that for a while. But as you start to learn and develop, Wendell's saying here, you do want to add more tools to your tool belt. And then when you have those conversations, you really have a good understanding of what their problems are. You almost know which option is even better for them. And although you can present the different options, you can almost lead them into the right option that's best for them because you know this business. But that takes time. One thing that people don't understand is like acquisitions takes years to develop and master. If you think you're just going to start coming into wholesaling and I'm going to just start cold calling, I'm going to be making all this money and closing all these deals, it doesn't happen like that, right? Like my sales guy here in New Hampshire, Eddie, he's a rock star, but he's been doing it for 5 years. He's done almost 200 deals, right? Dan Toback, who's our coach on coaching program, he's been doing it for 10 years. When you start to see these guys' conversion levels, they're off the charts, but because they've been working at it for so long, they're so good. It's just like anything else, right? The more you practice, the better you get. So you have to be patient. Understand it will take you a few years really to hone in these acquisition skills. And that's why you should always be a student and learning all these different things. Invest into coaching and different types of coaching so you get better and better over time.
Absolutely. And I think, especially the coaching, like I have a mentor that I work with too, and I highly recommend getting a mentor or coach. But obviously, always make sure, especially in today's world, you want to really kind of interview your mentor and make sure they're actually doing what they're saying and stuff. And Jeremy obviously definitely is. And this is the type of like mentor that I would love to work with and people should work with. Avoid the people that are on like Instagram being like, I just made $3 million in 3 months, buy my course. And then they have like a texting program that they don't even like talk to you. You want to have a coach that's there face to face, does the thing that they're saying and actually has proof showing it. Then you can really skip kind of that learning curve, which takes a little bit, that we all went through that when we started real estate investing. We're like going through the first year, we're like, what the hell are we doing?
Yeah, exactly.
Making mistakes. We're like, oh my God.
It's costing more than coaching does anyway.
Yeah, way more than coaching does. Then you can skip those steps and kind of just like, yes, you're still going to be learning and being a student every single day, making mistakes. That's part of the game. That's the part of the fun of being like an entrepreneur. but you can skip some of those initial bumps that could really set you back more financially and also confidence wise when you get going. Because when you first get going, you're pretty fragile. You're excited, you're motivated, but one thing goes wrong, you're like, oh, maybe I'm not cut out for this. If you're a mentor there and you say like, I just ran into this problem, the mentor is going to be like, oh, I run into that every single day. Like, these are your options. This is what you should look at. And they help you through it. And you'll be like, oh, wow, this is way,
the business.
It's part of it, you know? And then you build your confidence even faster that way. So that's awesome. And I love that you have that, like the coaching program and mentorship too. It seems like you have it down pat, the correct way to do it. And I love that because the industry needs that, you know?
Yeah, a few things you said. I think you're working with a coach that was doing it in 2015 and now it's 2024, 25. Well, the world's a different place from 10 years ago, right? So what may have worked then doesn't necessarily work now. Not to say that the person isn't a good coach, but you have somebody that's still doing things today. They have a better pulse on today's economy, today's challenges, today's marketing channels that succeed, different things like that. So I think that's really, really important. And listen, I've invested a lot of money in coaching. I've always seeked out coaching. I will never stop seeking out coaching because I have blind spots and there's so much more I would need to know that I don't know that I don't know. And as I get into this business more, I have to find more and more people who have more success than I do to help guide me to where I need to go. So I can do it the hard way and learn a lot of mistakes and spend a lot of money doing it, or I could pay somebody to help expedite that process again for confidence, right? So one of the things we like to do in our coaching program, especially for the newbies, we don't always work with just newbies, but for the newbies that come in, I want to get their first deal under belt in like first 3 to 4 months. And it's not so they can get money. I want them to get confident, right? You mentioned confidence. I want them to be like, that $5,000 check I showed earlier in this podcast was great because it was like, holy shit, I can do this. This works, right? $5,000 is great, but the confidence you get off it is much greater. And coaching definitely helps you get a lot of confidence. And you're going to continue to need that confidence as you continue to get bigger and better and more advanced. It never goes away. This is a business that's tough, like anything else. It's going to challenge you and give you a lot of sleepless nights at times. It's going to humble the best of us. You need to have a good support network. And a lot of times that's coaches and people in this industry that are doing what you're doing to help guide you through.
Yeah, just to reiterate that, like the confidence is huge. And then you have to keep growing it like as you go through, even if you're like 5 years, 10 years in, 15 years in, because you're going to be doing bigger deals then. And if one of those deals go wrong, like you still need the confidence to be like, I can fix this. Like it's going to get done and we're going to find a way to push through it. But yeah, so that's awesome. And then I just want to dive into, you answered basically like, I had 3 questions in a row and that covered a lot of them. So
all right. See guys, when you know what you're doing, you know how to get ahead of what the seller's going to ask the questions. So,
you're figuring it out before I even say it. But other than like the coaching, the mentorship type programs and stuff, like if you were sitting down with a new investor, like say someone comes on to you as a mentor, what is like some of the first pieces of advice that you give to them to get started? And what is like the first piece of advice that you would have gave to yourself 8 years ago too, that you wish you did, that you would need to get started too?
I have a lot of conversations with people because obviously our coaching business and there's the sales side of people that come into our coaching business. And I really want to just be very transparent about everything. Like it's a simple business, but it's not easy, Wendell. You know, you talked earlier about how hard this business is. And there's a lot of smoke and mirrors on social media and the internet. I don't want to be one of those guys. I don't want to be one of those people that's sitting on a fancy car looking at all my success and masking all the problems because it is hard. There are sleepless nights. There are going to be times when you question yourself, did I make the right choice? Is this going to work? Am I on the brink of failure, right? But this is how all businesses work. Whether you own a restaurant, a retail store, a landscaping company, you're a plumber, whatever, like we all have these struggles. Real estate's no different. Just real estate comes across way more glamorous, right? So I want to let people know, first of all, it's harder than you think. It's going to cost you more money to generate leads than you think. A lot of people think you can just do it for free. It's not the way. It costs money to make money in this business, at least consistently, right? If you want to scrape Facebook Marketplace, get some deals here and there, you have buyers and you're looking for people to JV with, that's fine, but you can't build a business. That is just a hustle, right? If you want to build a business, you're going to need marketing money and that costs, right? It's harder than you think and it takes longer than you think. I think people just need to be patient. We talked earlier in the podcast that this is more of a journey. There's no destination. This isn't a get rich quick thing. And there's so much of that out there that just provides people like, oh, I don't need any money. I can just start wholesaling. I'll be making a ton of money in no time without spending any of my own money. And it's going to be really easy. All I have to do is just pull a list and start cold calling and I'll be, having Benjamins everywhere I can have them, right? It doesn't work that way, guys. And it's hard. It's a simple business, but it is hard and it costs money. So those are the things I really like to share with people up front to make sure that they know what they're getting themselves into. I tell everybody, Randall, that if you really want to do this, you need to understand that it's going to take a year of hard work, consistent marketing, and really good guidance to build the foundation of something great. If you can survive a year, many wholesalers don't survive to get their first deal. Many more don't even survive to get the first year. But if you can to build a solid foundation that first year. That foundation will continue to have great momentum in years to come, but you really have to bust your ass for a solid year to build it.
Yeah, I love that you approach it like with a no BS, no bullshit type thing right off the bat. Just like, hey, it can be very good, but it's going to be very, very hard.
Yes.
And it's going to take like a year, and it's going to take hard work, and it's going to take going through a ton of learning curves in the beginning. Because a lot of people, social media and stuff, they just make it seem like just going to, again, like pull a list, call people, and just start like printing money. It's like, yeah, have fun. You're going to call 100 people. They're going to tell you to F off. Yeah. And then half of them aren't going to answer. And a quarter of those won't even be like the right phone number. It'll be like a dial tone. It's like, okay, then your confidence will be shot. Because you're like, because then you start thinking like, I think the worst thing about real estate, like the social media and stuff on it, is you're looking at other people, right, that look so successful, which a lot of them probably aren't. And then the ones that are really successful aren't gloating about it because they're too busy working. You know what I mean? So
that's the point. I love that. That's great. That's good.
And then you start like comparing yourself to them. Yeah. But you should never compare yourself to any other real estate investor. You should look to them for guidance or how to learn, but don't compare yourself, because like 5 years ago, they were literally you. They were like trying to figure it out, had no idea what they were doing. So you just got to take each day at a time and just know that it is going to be hard. You know, take probably a year. I would even say like if you're working a W-2, don't just leave that W-2 until you at least have a year of doing it on the side. You're confident, you have a few deals under your belt, and you're like, okay, I've done it. I've successfully got deals. Now, if I take all my time and put it there, could I like 5X that? Could I 10X that? Like maybe. And then you can start thinking about that way. And when you're ready to make that jump, then you can. But I would say, especially in this market, in this current economy, in this current real estate, you really want to not gradually get into it, but you want to have some like kind of safety nets as you learn and get into it. Because you can really, you could get into real estate and really just screw up really bad. And then you're like, ah, shit, now I got to really like start over. But
and plan on burning the candles at both ends. Listen, I worked a full-time job for the first 3 years while I grew this business, right? I had people along the way telling me to quit, but as you mentioned, I had 5 kids. I was afraid to quit my W-2. I wish I did sooner, but everything worked out in the end, because once you are able to really focus on your business and go all in, your business does grow really fast. But man, I had a sales guy for 6 months doing acquisitions for me. I'm still afraid to quit, right? It is scary, but I recommend that you definitely make sure you have a consistent business before. It could just be a couple deals a quarter consistently, or 1 deal a month consistently, right? Depending on which market you're in. You know, if you feel like, hey, if I left my job, am I pretty close to making that income up in a short amount of time? If the answer is yes, you're probably ready to go all in, because then you'll really start to explode in the next 6 to 12 months from there.
Absolutely. Yeah. And people ask me all the time. I recently left. I've been investing for over about 3 years now, right? And I just left like my W-2 back in June. So I decided like, hey, I figured it out. I got my cushion and it's time to go. And just that alone, like I know I have a large cushion from like one of the deals that I did, but even then I was still scared. I'm like, oh shit.
We had like 6 months of savings and we were still scared.
It's like, when's that next paycheck going to come in? But it just makes you work harder. But people ask me all the time, they're like, when do you know when it's time to go? And I just say like, really kind of look at it like Dave Ramsey. You know what I mean? Like, I don't believe a lot of what Dave Ramsey says about real estate and things, but his budgeting and like how to look at numbers and like how to look at cost of living it's very good. And I'm like, just set up a budget and realistically look at how much it costs for you to live, and then realistically look at how much money you have saved and how long is it going to take you to start, recouping more money to start living and continuing that lifestyle that you're trying to live or like you're currently living. And if you have enough to like last you like 6 months, and you know that you're going to probably hopefully get a few deals within those 6 months, you should be fine. But you just got to do like the game of numbers and just figure out like where your risk tolerance is and when it's time to go. But in the meantime, I would say definitely stay at your W-2 as you're starting to get into it and build. Don't just hop into it because it's hard.
Wendell, is if you really want to start getting into real estate, you need to start doing sooner than later, right? You're 30, you're able to leave your job at 30 years old. That's amazing. A lot of the people that come into my coaching program tend to be between 30 and 40 years old. The people that are, sick of just commuting into work, they're probably making decent money, but they're just sick of the lifestyle of being in an office and dealing with a boss and everything else, right? Yeah. But as you start to get into your 40s and more, you'd be surprised how quickly you become replaceable as a high income earner, right? So one of my students, a good friend of mine, was well into his late 40s and he was wanting to do real estate, but life just kept him busy enough where he didn't. And his company had a couple layoffs, and it wasn't until the third one where he was having to tell everybody they were let go in the first two, and finally on the third he was let go, and he was a high income earner. And guess what happened then? He had 2 kids in college, couldn't find a job anywhere. He was struggling, and then he had to hurry up and start his business, which we helped him, and it kind of helped him get through that tough time. But he got himself back to work, but he's building his business now on the back end with much more urgency, knowing that my day job is never guaranteed, right? You guys heard me early on that I was out of work in the recession, so I know this firsthand. So you quit your job on your own terms. That's how you want to do it. If you think you're just going to have this great W-2, and I'm always going to have the safety of a paycheck. Well, what happens if your company goes out of business? What happens if it's bought out by somebody else? What if it's affected by some new technology, right? We all go into like the self-checkout aisles now, right? How many clerks are actually checking people out at like Walmart and McDonald's and all these things? More things are changing. When was the last time you bought a newspaper or a magazine? Those things change, right? Yes. So you could be in a job where 5 years from now, that niche doesn't even exist. So start working on building your real estate. If this is truly what you want to do, build it now, sooner the better. And then you be in a situation like Wendell where you can leave, and myself, and leave on your own terms and not somebody else's.
Love it. Yeah. Another thing too is that real estate, like you buy rentals, I buy rentals as well, then I do flips, do wholesaling, etc. Yeah. But time is one of the biggest wealth builders in real estate.
Hell yeah.
So if you can buy when you're younger, even if it's like a deal that's just getting by, like obviously the numbers need to work, you don't want to be in the red, but if you can buy and just keep that property, like time is where you build the most wealth. It's awesome when you can do fix and flips, when you can do wholesales, when you can do stuff like that. And that's going to help you buy those rentals to then hold on to. But I think buying and holding is where you really build wealth, but there's so many other obviously ways to make money in real estate as well.
Yeah, buy and hold is where you build the wealth, and wholesaling, flipping, novations, that's transactional. That's the cash grab, right? Yep. Cash is going to build your lifestyle and build your company and allow you to build wealth, which hopefully you're putting into real estate and or buying businesses, things that have long-term value in the end.
Love it. Awesome. So a few more questions and we can wrap it up because we know you're a busy guy. So I always ask this question to everybody. You did mention some books in the beginning, but I just want to target a little bit more. What is like your favorite like business investing or real estate book that you would recommend to everybody? And if you have a few, you can do it too.
I am going to give you a few. I already mentioned Chris Voss, right? Never Split the Difference. I think that's a must. This one too, Flip the Script, Oren Klaff. Great book on sales in this industry. Equity Happens. This is the power of buying long-term rentals and how equity can change your life. This is a hard book to come by Robert Helms and Russell Gray, the radio guys. It's great. And this one I just read recently, Chad Carlson, The Mighty Investor, talks about paying off small and single families, multifamilies for rentals, and the value of not having debt sometimes. And I love debt, and debt definitely works. I'm not a Dave Ramsey debt type person, but there is something nice about having a few properties that you own free and clear that you can use for leverage and things of that nature too. So 3 really good books.
Yeah, I love that. And leveraging in real estate is one of the best things about real estate is the fact that you can like do cash out refinances tax-free and put that into other properties and then continue snowballing wealth and snowballing returns by using money from one property, putting it to another. But yeah, having properties that are paid off, like some properties I have, I'm like, man, if this was just paid off, I'd feel real good because like this so consistent money coming in. There's no expenses there. And then you always have that. So you have that property there that if a deal comes by and you're like, oh my God, this is an amazing deal. You can just do a quick cash out refinance or a HELOC or something on it, put that money into that deal. And you just always have it in your back pocket, which is, it's amazing. And it's kind of like a safety net, like that you have. That's like, if the world ends, at least I have this place. You know what I mean?
Right. I wouldn't pay off all my properties, but I'd like to have, and I don't have any, but I'd like to have a few of my best properties paid off for those reasons that you just mentioned. The security nest egg, great deal comes along, I can pull that equity out and use it towards something else, right? To have those options is great.
Yep, absolutely. So here's the last question I'll ask you, which is usually just I open the floor to you a little bit. So is there just anything else you'd like to tell the audience? Maybe like how to reach out to you, your social media handles, any meetups that you want to attend in the area or places you might be speaking, charities that you like or run, business links, or just how to contact you and stuff. Sure. You can just talk about it here.
Yeah, well, first of all, I have to say you're a great host and your knowledge of this business is really great. So people listening to this podcast should continue to listen to this podcast because it's obvious that listening to you, Wendell, they're going to learn a lot. So I really respect all the knowledge that you brought in just hosting me on your podcast today as a guest. So thank you for that. And then the best way to reach out to me is I'm on all the social media handles at REI Freedom from Real Estate Investing Freedom. I'll tell you what, for all the people that are listening today, if you guys want a free PDF of our top 5 sales techniques, you guys can go to reifreedom.com/top sales. So it's reifreedom.com/top sales, and then put in your information and you can download a free PDF of our top 5 sales techniques, which we touched on earlier today. I do a lot of speaking events. I'm going to be in Ocala, Florida coming up, and I'm going to be in LA, and I'm going to be in New York. If you guys have a REIA you'd like me to come do a presentation at, reach out to me and let me know. But listen, I'm all for trying to help people in this business. If you want to reach out to me on social media, ask me some questions, I will always take time out of my day to help answer them the best that I can. And I don't expect anything in return. I'm just happy to provide value where I can.
Love that. I love that. And I'm going to put all the information in the bio and the clips that we post. So whoever's listening, you'll be able to see it on Spotify and YouTube. And I'll even put that link in there as well. That's awesome that you're giving that out, like the free PDF that shows those sales techniques, because it's really important. Sales is an everyday part of life. You want to
everything.
It's literally everything. If you think about it, sales is everything. And it's all about people to people. So
Mhm.
if you want a girlfriend, a boyfriend, it's sales. You got to
Yep.
sell
Not
yourself.
selling yourself, brother.
You gotta sell. You gotta sell. You gotta sell like a good person. Everything that you do in life is sales. So it's one of the best things, even if you're not a salesperson, or if maybe you don't do that, you're just more of like marketing, or you just want to learn about sales a little bit, but you're just not in sales. It's just gonna make you a better person overall. So that's awesome. I'll put that in the link and everything. And thank you so much, Jeremy, for coming on. You have a ton of knowledge, and I'm excited to continue to watch your business grow and also watch you do amazing things. And hopefully down the line we can chat again. And when you come to Charlotte, we can meet up and maybe grab something to eat or something.
Let's go, bro. Let's go.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you guys for watching, and we're out.